Hello, friends. This is Gyro Jam Yang Powell. Maybe that's Cecilia. Welcome to the first Friday morning, 7 a.m.-ish. Now it's 7:27. Zoom meeting featuring me, and let's see who else shows up. Let's see. Okay, let's zoom now. So I told Luis we're zooming. Let's see. I'm gonna go tell. I'm gonna go tell. Dominic, we're zooming. We're zooming now. We're zooming. Okay. Las pongo aquí.
Sí.
En la meta.
Y entonces, ¿cómo me meto? Ajá. Ay, 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 ay. Ahora rótame.
So, how's everybody this Friday morning? What day is this? April 30th. Abril 30. Hoy es abril 30.
¿Abril 30?
Del 2021. El año 2021. Qué barbaridad.
Abril 30.
Sí. Se acabó abril. ¿Sigue qué? Después de abril, ¿qué sigue?
Mayo.
Mañana va a ser mayo.
Lewis.
¿Sí?
Join the meeting.
Oh,
Luis.
yes.
You're zooming with us.
I am. Austin.
There's me, myself, and I.
That's a lot of people.
And Bertasilia, my mother.
Ah, buenos días. ¿Cómo estamos?
Say hello to my mother.
Buenos días, señora.
¿Cómo está?
Muy bien, ¿y usted?
Muy bien, muy bien.
Ya es viernes.
¿Viernes? Hola,
Sí.
¿verdad?
Yo los viernes me pongo extremadamente contento.
¿Sí?
Sí.
¿Y eso por qué?
Se acerca el fin de semana y no tengo que trabajar en la oficina, aunque tengo que trabajar en casa, no sé lo que es peor.
Sí, claro. Muy bien. No.
Tengo el placer de conocer íntimamente a su hijo. Somos
¿Sí?
muy buenos amigos, llevamos muchos años ya hablando.
¿A
Y,
cuál?
y
¿Cuál?
a Jairo,
Ah,
sí, sí, sí. Los demás no los conozco. Sé que son familia numerosa, tiene un montón de hermanos, hermanas.
ah,
Conozco bien a Jairo, somos amigos íntimos. Y siempre
ah,
estamos hablando de temas filosóficos, metafísicos,
caramba.
referentes a la naturaleza y la esencia de la realidad, que no es poca cosa.
Ave María. Qué bien, qué bien.
Así que hoy estoy de camino, estoy manejando a la costa este, no tenía otra cosa que hacer y he
Ah,
pensado, bueno, vamos a hablar un poco, a ver qué se nos ocurre, porque normalmente hablamos de cualquier cosa y de nada al mismo tiempo.
qué bien. Ay, Dios.
Así que en esas estamos.
Qué alegría.
Sí, muy bien. Muchos gozos para todo el mundo que esté
Sí.
escuchando esto.
Ahí
Ah,
¿has invitado a algunos participantes?
sí, muchos. A
No
Dominic
tecas.
Tini. Ahora voy a invitar a Manny Gross. Hey, I'm typing. Hey, Manny, mm, would you like to Zoom with us right now and open your Zoom app and join with the ID 407 space 486 space 8642. Wow, so many even numbers. There,
Yes,
send
it's
him.
beautiful.
Then I go copy and paste. Let's try to get Justin in London. He's got to be awake. Let's see. Hey, I'll change the name.
What about Mike?
I'll change the name Manny to Justin. Hey, Justin. And then enter.
That's it. Copy and paste.
And let's see. And Mike. Let's see. Mike. And there he is. Then paste. Now I change Manny to Mike. Hey, Mike, would you like to blah, blah, blah? There, I've invited two more. And Dominic, I have invited. Hey, let's randomly pick someone in Messenger. Ah, oh, Gigi. Oh, she's asleep. She's in Seattle. Oh, Heather. Let's try Heather. That would be amazing. Hey, Heather.
Whatever happened with Adriana? She disappeared out of the radar screen. The interpreter translator.
Oh, let's try Adriana. Let's see. Adriana. Let's see. Is that her? Adriana Maria R. I don't think that's her. Oh yeah, it is her. Okay, I'll paste it. Hey, hey, a change Mike or change Manny to Adriana. Hey, Adriana, comma, would you like blah blah blah? There. Oh, I it it changed the name with correction to Asians. Hey, Asians. I'll change it to Adriana again. Hey, Adriana. Why did it change it to Asians? Maybe I
What are we
spelled
going to talk about?
it. Yes. What is pure thinking as opposed to practical thinking? Is that like uh, absolute versus relative, or
Yes, yeah, absolutely,
ultimate
yes. Yeah,
versus
because
conventional?
pure right there is indicating something
Oh,
absolute. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Did you mute yourself? Hello. Ido. Actually,
I'm back. I'm back. Luis is still there. Wow.
Ido.
Yes, I'm back. Oh, what happened? Mm. Mm.
Lewis.
Oh,
Joined the meeting.
Luis is back. He's back.
Hey there.
Luis is back. I'm
What
back.
happened?
My phone shut down.
No.
So now I'm
The
on.
cheek.
So now I'm on the heavy
The
duty
laptop.
desktop computer.
Computer. La computer.
I'm on a desktop in all in one. 10 years old.
All right. Still no takers. So your question is pure thinking of the absolute or is it of the relative? And obviously, the word pure already is indicating something. I mean, pure, what is pure? If we define pure as something, what? That has no impurities, that is absolutely what it is, no deviation, no relativity. It is what it is. And what is what it is is reality as it is, whether we think about it or not, it is there. And it is doing its thing. It doesn't know it's doing its thing. It's just doing. So, of course, pure reason is pointing our thinking process to whatever is absolute and not relative. So, yes, that's a good question, and I think this is a perfect answer.
Oh, wonderful. So if there is pure thinking, then there must be if there is impure reasoning, or
That's right.
or if there is
Yeah. So
impure
basically,
reason,
that's right. Pure reason, impure
pure
reason,
reason, there must be impure reason.
and no reason.
Chico.
You know, no reason. There must be pure, impure, and neither pure or impure, which is 0 Kelvin.
Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
I just had an insight. Ha!
Insight?
Yep.
What's it like to have an insight?
Well, when you have a new perspective that you didn't consider before in your understanding of reality. But in asking the question, you made me think and answer. There is pure reason, impure reason, and no reason.
There's no reason.
So this is something that I had never considered before in my representation of reality, or at least I didn't verbalize it when I talked about the nature of reality, which is the following, that there are 3 aspects to reality. That's beautiful. There are 3, and that's why they probably represented the Brahman face as 3 faces. The universe has 3 faces. That son of a bitch, whoever came up with that one. So basically, if you ask me what is the nature of reality, or what are the qualities of reality, I would say basically we can see 3 aspects to the whole universe, the whole cosmos, the whole being. And those 3 aspects are, and I used to say, the phenomenal aspect, the non-phenomenal aspect, and no aspect. And this distinction would never occur to me although it was clear in my mind, but I never verbalized this 3rd distinction. And in not doing so, I was misleading whoever listened to me, because everybody always has a problem understanding the distinction between samsara and nibbana or nirvana. And it's probably because I did not pinpoint the 3rd aspect, which is no aspect whatsoever. And this came right now to me as I'm driving east, just like the first insight, the most important insight I had years back. I was driving east also with the sun in my face, where I realized that samsara and nirvana are not 2 entities, they are just 2 aspects of the same being, not as an entity, but as a verb, as an action, being as a verb. Reality is being, but not as a thing or an entity, but as a verb, as an action, a organismic interplay or dynamic tango between the phenomenal and the non-phenomenal, and neither of them at the same time. So, this insight that you helped cohere because you asked the question, and in asking the question, it just came to me. So this is. I hope you're recording this because this is big. This is a big moment for me, at least.
Yes, this meeting is being recorded.
Yes. So you are recording a new paradigm, an additional perspective, a new creation within my creative process of understanding reality as it is, where I am able to verbalize a little bit more clearly the nature of being with a big B, capital B, and construed, understood as an action, not a thing or an entity. So I'm gonna just to make it sink even better, I'm going to repeat the sentence. Just as there are three aspects immanent with reality, three aspects of reality, three ways of looking at reality, or three ways reality can look at itself or be itself: the phenomenal, the non-phenomenal, or noumenal. And I will throw in Kant, which I just discovered directly a couple of weeks ago, in a synthetic a priori perspective. There are three reasons. There is pure reason, there is impure reason, and there is no reason at all. So there it is. So from now on, when you and I talk and I'm expressing my views regarding the nature of being, the nature of reality, the nature of being and non-being, because, I can go into that and explain that being and non-being are immanent to each other, because anicca, which is universal and eternal change, implies that being is non-being at the same time, because if being was not non-being at the same time, there would be no change. And then reality would not look like a moving picture. It would look like a static picture. It would look like a picture and not a movie. Because in order for something to change, something has to stop being what it is in order to be something else or somewhere else or look different. So, so there. That's my. This is the coalescence, the emergence of an additional precision in my understanding and my verbalization of the nature of being, the nature of reality.
Could you repeat
this
that
is a
again?
distinction that I didn't make before.
Could you repeat that again from the beginning?
Holy shit. Okay. New insights are very tiring. They take a lot of energy, but it feels good because, you go into a ketonic state of mind, and we can talk about that too. Ketonic ketosis in the body can be equated to ketosis in the mind. Anyway, so here is the repetition of this latest insight. There are three fundamental aspects of the same one thing, and I call it reality with a capital letter, capital R, reality, which is everything and no thing, everywhere and all the time. That means nowhere and at no time. So transcendental space. And those three fundamental aspects of that one thing, which we call reality or the cosmos or the universe or the multiverses or the bulk, are phenomenal, non-phenomenal, i.e. noumenal, and neither, which is something that you find in the old Hindu texts, neti neti, neither this nor that. Any questions? Jairo, did you lose your computer too? Hello. Who? Hello.
Good morning, Luis.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Dominic?
Pretty good, Luis, and good morning, Jay.
I don't know if he muted himself or something. He was on his
Yeah.
phone, then he lost his phone, then he started on the computer again.
Yeah, I see him. He's muted. How you doing? By the way,
Happy
Luis.
Friday.
Oh, yes, it
Oh,
is.
Happy Friday. What a
welcome,
this is,
Dominic.
Hi, Jay. Go ahead, Luis.
Dominic, you have no idea how excited I am.
How so?
Well, I just had a moment. I just had a moment because Heido asked a question that,
Catalyzed.
yes, catalyzed an additional precision in my vocalization or explanation regarding the nature of being and non-being, the nature of reality, the nature of the universe, et cetera, et cetera. And his question was, if there is pure reasoning or pure reason, because we've been talking about Kant the last couple of weeks. So if there is pure reason, there must be impure reason. And and he also asked, actually, he first asked, what is pure reason? And does it have to do with the transcendental or the metaphysical view of reality? And I said, yes, of course. So, but in doing so, he then threw the idea of pure reason and impure reason. And I replied by saying that actually there is pure reason, there is impure reason, and there is no reason whatsoever. And immediately it became clear to me that it was an insight, although I already kind of had gone through this the triad of this idea, but I had never verbalized it when I talked to others, when I shared my views regarding reality. I had never expressed it in these terms. I always talked about reality exhibiting two fundamental aspects or distinguishable aspects, yet there's only one reality. And I kind of said that reality exhibits two aspects, which are the phenomenal aspect, the non-phenomenal, which is also called noumenal aspect, or transcendental, a priori synthetic understanding. And then there is the third one, which I never discussed. I never threw that at whoever was listening to me, which is, it has a third aspect, which is neither phenomenal, neither non-phenomenal. That is no aspect. And this is to me, it was clear before, but I never talked about it in these terms. And I just right before you joined, I mentioned to Heido that this concept has been already hashed out many years ago by other thinkers, And the shortest expression of the third consideration is described as neti neti.
Not this,
Neither, neither this, neither that.
Yep.
So I believe that I will now be able to somehow clarify the nature of being, not as an entity, but as a verb, as a process, as a dynamic process, organismic process, because there is this third distinction, which somehow ties together the being, the non-being, the phenomenal, the non-phenomenal, the conventional and transcendental, with this third leg, which is neither, or both at the same time. Because if you're not this one, you're the other. But you're not the other, you're the other. So you're neither of them, or you are both at the same time, which ties beautifully with the quantum mechanics description of what is, which is the phenomenal. I mean, what we see, what we measure, which is the phenomenal world, by saying that, hey, what we see in reality is a particle, or behaves like a particle and behaves like a wave. So it is a thing or a vibration, just a movement.
Why must there be no reason? That's the next question, because now we have a Trinity. So God the Father
triad.
is pure reason. God the Son is impure reason, because he came down to earth and became impure. And then the Holy Spirit, or what connects the two, is no reason, because with that 0 Kelvin, it can go at the speed of thought. The connection between the two.
In a sense, you're doing you're using a good parallel, a good comparison. Any triad, because now we're talking about a triad of phenomenal, non-phenomenal, and neither phenomenal or non-phenomenal. So, because it is a new insight for me, although I understand, I've talked about the 0 Kelvin to exhaustion, and I have talked about the phenomenal aspect of reality and the non-phenomenal aspect of reality. I think I need to spend some time verbalizing this. And I do believe that the answer lies in the fact that both pure reason and impure reason have to do with the dance between being and non-being, or the phenomenal and non-phenomenal, which is tied by the link of 0 Kelvin. So, and I believe that I can even describe this in terms of the Heart Sutra or the Kula Sunyata Sutra, which talks about emptiness.
So
and I think emptiness is actually 0 Kelvin, which is neither pure reason, neither impure reason. It is both at the same time and neither of them, because it is the nexus, the bridge between, you could say that 0 Kelvin, or non-being at all, no reason at all, is the river, the space between the two shores, the shores of impure reason and the shore of pure reason. So that crossing the shores is the 0 Kelvin.
And why does no reason seem unreasonable? If you say that something happened or was done for no reason, or for no good reason, or for no reason at all, you mean to say that there was no obvious reason why it happened or
Yeah,
was
but you're
done.
yeah, that's a dangerous leap you're doing there, Heido, because the perspective from which you ask the question and the wording, the semantics, the rhetoric that you're using in order to ask that question is confusing, because we are not talking from the conventional run-of-the-mill consciousness that talks about, you did this for a reason or for no reason or something like that. But we are way beyond that level of understanding. I mean, here we are just absolutely synthetic in our discussion, because we are, just imagine, we are looking at reality. We are looking at the whole universe from the filter of three aspects. That's it. Which all three of them are way beyond the level of consciousness that we use when we decide to open a door, quit a job, or slap the neighbor because he was making too much noise, playing too much music too loud. You see what I mean? So we cannot go back and forth.
But isn't pure reason? So there's pure reason, and then there's impure reason, and that's kind of like practical reason. And in there you have the want, or you demand that everything makes sense, that there's a reason for doing this and that, and then there's no reason.
No. You're mistaken there, because pure reason is transcendent of exactly that.
But what
pure
about
reason,
impure reason?
Then you can talk about that. You can ask those questions at the level of impure reason, but you cannot talk about making sense or anything in the conventional realm when you're talking about pure reason.
No,
pure
but
reason,
I'm talking about impure reason. Under impure reason, we have the conversation of that something happened for no good reason.
That's right.
That's because the ego wants everything to make sense, to have a reason.
Yes, because we are looking at things and the relationship with things, but we're not looking at the other side of the movie, which says there are no things, there are no reasons. Transcendentally, all this is I would say, a virtual game, a matrix. It's just like in the Matrix. The real life is actually fake, but behind the real life, it's real. But there's no talking about it or thinking about it if you don't have both sides. So you got to be very cautious. You have to be very cautious to precisely use both pure reason and impure reason at the same time in order to make sense of the triad.
So there is no reason and reason at the same time.
That is correct.
The reason is we wanting to make sense of why the other person did what they did. And then there is the no reason, where you say everything's happening for no reason at all, or that things happen from so many causes and conditions that you can't determine where it came from, so you accept it as arising by itself.
Kant talks about the non-condition, just like Buddha talks about the non-fabricated, the non-born. They're talking about the same thing. So within the whole, the whole finds a way somehow, without knowing, that's consciousness that emerges from it, to ask the question, what the hell is this? What am I doing here? Who am I? Why is this happening? Et cetera, et cetera. But it is the unconditioned whole from which those questions are emerging. So it is clear that although at the impure reason, the question is applicable, and it's good to ask it, because if not, you never get to the pure reason, but you must make the leap somewhere to understand that there is no question, there is no answer, and it all arises from the non-conditioned whole, which itself does not know that the question is being asked from within it. See?
What happens when we do something for no reason or no good reason at all? Are you asking
from the conventional impure reason, or are you asking from the non-conventional transcendental pure reason? Immediately you know that question is not applicable if you ask from the pure reason perspective.
Why is that?
Well, it is clear you're not understanding. Because if you did understand, you would say immediately, this question only applies from the impure reason, conventional, run-of-the-mill, mundane, trivial perspective on the whole.
But what if you act in a way that you say to yourself, where did that come from? Or you think something and that you say, where did that thought come from? It didn't come from my line of thought, my train of thought. So it seems to have no reason. So it seems to come from itself. So couldn't have that thought or that action have come from the domain of pure reason?
Luis, can I give it a stab here to explain to
yeah, go ahead. Maybe
Jay,
you will be able to clarify.
Well, hopefully that he can maybe grasp this. When Luis is talking from the point of view of the Buddha and all that kind of stuff, when it's non-conditional or unconditional, that's coming from the observer / witness. You're witnessing. So like, I'll give you an example. I'll elaborate a little bit more on the reasoning. You can question reasons, you can ponder reasonings, you can observe reasoning. So it's like, there's many degrees to reasoning. Now, there could be one particular reasoning somebody might call pure because it's conducive reasoning. This is where Kant was ever so lightly touching on. So we have like positive and negative and grounding, the triad. That's another variations of it. But in between, there's many degrees within it. So as the observer, unconditional, this is where love and awareness exists, you can observe the condition part, the language you're using, how you're trying to answer it with a question or an answer, that's coming from the conditional part. The observer, I think Louise had talked in a meetup, there's the intuitive part. This is where the observer can actually use the intuitive part to explain it, because a lot of times the people that are well read are using their hemispheres very linear. So the observer can't even use that to a certain point. So in this case, you can question reasoning, like even within pure reasoning, there's all these subdirectories to get to that point. And part of the ideal of saying non-reason, that's one of the directories. Same with observing reasoning, questioning reasoning, seeing how shallow reasoning is. You had brought in earlier, Louise, about God. This is how we start putting God, we start putting God in our image. It's saying, well, God has reason. No, this is us talking. This is us observing ourselves and realizing, okay, how do I reason things out? Listen to the word reason things out. Once you start observing your language outside, then you can observe it inside. So anyway, I try my best, and hopefully, Jay, it triggers you in some way.
Does a Buddha who has gone beyond not only while on earth, but he has passed away, or he has had to let go of his body. So does the Buddha, after this material mortal life, does the Buddha have pure reason, and has he let go of his impure reason and his no reason? and he's blown to encompass the whole universe.
You're looking outside again, Jay. When people talk about Buddha or Jesus, Muhammad, you can use that as some sort of like, lamppost from a distance. It's when you start talking about yourself, how does Jay see this reasoning? Because we can speculate what Kant said or didn't say. I go inwards and say, okay, something tells me whatever he was channeling or what he was doing, because if he's channeling something, it will resonate with me a little bit more than if he was just using his ego. So in this case, when you're talking about the Buddha, unless you're the Buddha, then you'll be talking about yourself. But you're not the Buddha, you're you. So it would be better to explain yourself. How do you use reasoning? Do you reason when you cross the street, do you look both ways? And then you look back, how did I even get that ideal of looking both ways? Was I taught that? Did I just come across from myself? If you were taught that, then you know that's conditioning. So you got to go ahead, Troy. Go ahead, Luis.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it another crack.
Okay, go ahead.
Forget about Buddha. Forget about Heido, Dominic, or Lewis, or anybody. Let's assume for a second. Let's do a thought experiment, which I use very often. Let's envision a universe with all its multiverses and all that, whatever. Let's envision the bulk, the whole. All right, the whole with a capital W, which includes everything and nothing. There's nothing outside of it. It's the whole, infinite, eternal, constantly changing, blah, blah, blah. Imagine a whole, W-H-O-L-E, that in these three perspectives of pure reason, impure reason, and no reason at all. How do you, Heido, in this case, you're having trouble with this question because you're already asking, how did the Buddha have pure reason after he had impure reason, and then what happened to the Buddha? What the hell happened with the Buddha? So let's imagine, change your name and ask the question regarding the whole of reality, the whole universe, the complete chaos that we observe out there without rhyme or reason, because there's nobody there to ask any questions. All right? So how would you ask the question from the standpoint of, okay, there's the whole, and how is the triad of pure reason, impure reason, and no reason at all apply or describe the whole?
Only speculate. From a conscious point of view, you can only speculate. Even with, you're saying, Luis, I'm going to add a little bit. When we say rhyme or reason, rhyme means pattern. There can even be pure patterns. People have never even tapped in on that concept. There could be pure patterns. That's why we have mandalas and we have all this sigil patterns.
So is the question applicable? Is this question of pure reason, impure reason, and no reason applicable to reality? If there is no consciousness, there is no reason to ask the question within reality.
Well, if we're questioning it, that means we don't got pure reason. Pondering it means that we don't have pure reasoning. That's the whole idea. Kant talking about it doesn't prove it's pure reasoning. I'm sorry, I don't even pronounce it. I'm just going to say he's pondering it. He was pondering the concept. He didn't know what pure reason was, because if he did, he would have been silent. But he might have. Maybe people asked him questions and somebody else after the fact wrote about it. Pure reason, if there is such thing as pure reason, it's not something you can really truly explain to other people that are still playing with all the different variations of reasoning. This is the whole ideal. This is how it always does the double split. When you're observing things, it always shifts on you. It's always constantly shift on it.
Yeah. I propose the following. It is because there is a reality. I think we all agree on that, right?
Not really.
Unless somebody says, no, there's
I
no
don't.
reality. Or the reality that I'm looking at is not real.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I think we all three agree that there is being, obviously.
Well, we use the word being. Yeah. Yeah, we to describe ourselves, there's the human aspect, the animal aspect, and then the unknown aspect that could be called spiritual or soul, which we can acknowledge
So
as being.
the concept of pure reason, impure reason, and no reason whatsoever is inevitable. Inevitable. Just like the zero Kelvin only exists for in a very tiny space in a very tiny amount of time before a quantum of energy comes out of it. So it is inevitable that within the whole, at some point, somewhere, a consciousness, what we call a consciousness, a question, is going to arise from the whole. And that being the case, then we can study or ponder or analyze that question, that consciousness. So to begin with, there is an inevitability of consciousness arising from what is. And so already we are, the question, when you say, well, when this thought came from, or come from, where is this thinking or my intention or my actions, or where do they come from? They come from nothing, because there is no nothing, there is that zero Kelvin from which inevitably something is going to come out. One quantum, or three quanta, or an infinite amount of quanta. So this shows how inevitably there's going to be pure reason, there's going to be impure reason, and there's going to be no reason whatsoever.
How can something come from nothing?
Well,
how can something come from nothing?
Just go ahead and study quantum mechanics. That'll be your best bet.
Break up the word, Jay. No thing. That's the essence of things. It's just people think that's nothing. They're saying it doesn't exist. Well, actually, there's always things in the existence of it. I'm just looking. I put up the definition, Luis. You can't see it, but when we start putting words like reason is one thing, and then there's pure. What is the definition of pure? Let's just use some of them. Not a mix with anything else, free from everything that might injure or lower the quality, pure water, pure milk, free from sin, innocent and chaste. This is where a lot of people would think that, well, I don't have any sins. So now I'm going to use I'm going to use reasoning. Like, people are always going to try to explain how the body works, how it came to be. Maybe some people will talk about how the body came to be. The reason can get you to a certain point. And now to think it's pure, it's kind of like somebody saying that they're holy. It's a game that we play with ourselves, and it always sucks us right back into the ego, the self, the lower mind, that thinks that for some reason it can explain the universe, when what they might be doing is pondering the universe, because we've been conditioned to think that there's question and answers. That's a conditioning. Once a person says, what's the answer, what's the question, you're talking from the conditioned part. Now, it's a game, it's ever enduring, and if a person, whether or not they set out thinking that they're going to solve the universe's problem, then they're not truly seeking. And even seeking in itself has its attachments to it. Now, I enjoy Kant. He seems like an entertaining little fellow in some way. I'm a little fellow myself, but to think that a whole bunch of people will go around talking about pure reason, it's like people talking about Christianity, or they talk about the Buddhas and they talk about the noble truths and all this other stuff, which is fine.
What is pure reason then, according to Kant? In Immanuel Kant's moral philosophy, it is defined as the capacity of a rational being to act according to principles, i.e., according to the conception of laws.
Yep.
What kind of laws?
Like
societal laws, or physical laws, or laws of reasoning?
Well, that's the whole thing.
For the use of pure reason and its a priori ideas, Both are transcendental in that they are presumed to analyze the roots of all knowledge and the conditions of all possible experience. The elements is divided in turn into transcendental aesthetic,
Yeah.
a
So,
transcendental analytic, and a transcendental something else.
so for example, the
Oh, a priori. So a priori is that what pure reason is? A
what's his
priori,
interpretation. It's his interpretation. It's like the word
a priori
acting.
as in it happens by itself, maybe?
It could be, but
What's a
Of course.
priori?
Of course,
A
it happens by itself. How does
priori.
reality happen? If it is unconditioned, it happens by itself. So you have your answer. How does zero become one? How does something come out of nothing? There it is. Because reality is unconditioned. It just happens. And because it happens, there's no other way. And that's the quantum nature of reality. The quantum nature. If you look at the infinitesimal of who we are and what we are, where we are, it shows you the zero becoming one. If vibrating anicca, vibrating into one.
So Luis, can I ask you, Luis, hold on. Luis, can I ask you, do you view the Big Bang Theory then? Because you just say it just comes out of nothing, like it just happens. So do you value the Big Bang?
Yes, but
That's where we depart.
There's nothing. Wait a minute. There's a big bang and there's a big crunch. There cannot be a beginning without an end, and there cannot be an end without a beginning. Reality is both the end and the beginning. So
But
that
what
means that there's
happened-
always a big bang and a
But
big
what
big
happened
crunch.
before? But what happened to cause the beginning? What was there before the beginning?
There is no cause. Reality is not caused. It just is. There it is.
So Jay,
No, but
Luis,
what caused the Big Bang?
Luis just explained his view. So Luis, do you value the concept that used to be old language that used to have a certain pitch to it that actually can shape shift materials? Because if you don't, then you value the Big Bang. You know,
Repeat the question again.
Do you value the concept or ever ponder the possibility that there was old languages of old that not the way we speak it, that it could speak things and it can manifest things by shape-shifting nature? So you could have steel and plastic and rubber and all this stuff because we don't create any of that stuff. So we know that we can't create that. Then this is where reason shortchanges itself. They think magically, and there could be magic involved, white and black magic, that all of a sudden that just happened. Trees just came to be.
Okay, if you want to label the change of zero into one as magic, go ahead, do that. But I don't use that word magic. I use the word natural.
But okay, so now knowing that, hold on, Luis, knowing that, who created numbers? Do you think humans created numbers?
Okay, so reality is unconditioned.
As the observer, yes. As the observer, yes.
And neither of the three. So language is an implicit aspect of reality, which eventually becomes actualized. Instead of being implicit, it is actualized. You know, when the factors, millions and millions and millions of factors in time and space and are conducive for language to emerge, because it's an emergent property of reality. So
some of the languages that shapeshift in, like Sanskrit, that has the healing tonality to it, or of course Greek that actually had the comprehension modality to it. All these languages are alchemy. We just never created all those things. As the observer, you turn. What's that?
Yeah. Everything is implicit in reality, and then it becomes explicit with a certain degree of probability. Like, for example, us in this planet, in this solar system, in this galaxy, et cetera, et cetera. And then out of this emerged, life, biological life, and then evolution, and then this and that, and eventually the sound or grunt sound became more like a and then and then a surprise or whatever, and then little by little, by evolution and contagion and imitation, language appeared.
Oh, that makes sense, Luis, because I've always questioned, I'm thinking to myself, okay, Luis is talking from a certain angle, and I realize you talk from the Big Bang Theory. Which is fine.
No. Wait a minute. Because what was before the Big Bang, people say there was nothing. And I say, no, right before the Big Bang, there was another crunching universe instead of an expanding universe or expanding reality. I don't care because, to me, I look at everything in terms of reality. I don't care how many universes are inside of reality, how many bubbles, just like a 70s lava lamp. So the Big Bang is not the beginning. It's just a continuation of reality in another aspect, the big expansion versus the previous big crunch. For every plus, there is a minus and then between every plus and every minus, there is a zero.
Like when you talk about reality, there, a lot of people will value the concept that reality is what we call reality is the waking state, opposed to reality could be the unknown state, such as all the stuff that's within you or the things that we just don't see. Like there literally could be parallel universes that are always creating and manifesting itself on the Earth plane.
Yes.
That's a possibility. I'm a ponderator.
That's how it is, and I can say that what you're saying mirrors perfectly the three aspects of reality: expansion, contraction, and neither expansion or contraction. Neither pure reason, impure reason, and neither reason or pure reason or impure reason. No reason whatsoever. So that triad, the one aspect, the other aspect, and neither aspect between them, that whole of the three aspects is the perfect description of reality. In there, you have no beginning, you have no end. Everything is a constant, dynamic interplay between 0, 1, and everything in between.
So what was the Buddha and Jesus doing during the Big Bang?
What were they doing?
What was the Buddha and Jesus and all Buddhas and all holy beings and all of us, what were we doing during the Big Bang?
We were implicate, we were potential before the conditions became so that we were explicit. We were actualized. We were, everything was. So they were always there without being there.
Were we contributing in any way to the Big Bang?
The Big Bang and the Big Crunch happens in and of itself. It's beyond. It's, again, I'm going to say this.
What happens?
It is non-conditioned. It just happens.
What happens right after the Big Crunch and right before the Big Bang?
You are at the point at the 0 Kelvin, exactly, 0 Kelvin. There is no actualization and everything is potential. So that's the transition between being crunching and being expanding. Or the transition between...
Is that where there is pure reason and no reason, but there is no impure reason at all?
Well, it is clear that the 0 Kelvin is the bridge between pure reason and impure reason. That's where they're in the middle, the whole potential of the two of them. So yeah, you can say that that is the point where there is neither pure reason or impure reason. But both of them are potential, although not actualized, because at 0 Kelvin, nothing is actualized.
But is no reason always there?
Jay, can I share something with you? Let's
Yeah.
really read what Kant said, and I'll break it down a little bit. What is pure reasoning according to Kant? In MAO, Kant, moral philosophy, and most people don't even learn what morality is because that's something that should be done at a very young age. School doesn't teach that. Okay, it is defined as the capacity of a rational being, not a selfish being or an inconsiderate being, to act according to principles. So think about when Luis has talked about the 8 principles or the 8 things of Buddha. You know, these are teachings that a person has to adhere to. Those are called principles, according to the concept of laws. So now laws is land, air, water, and space. So nature is untamed, it's wild. Then it has boundaries. It's put boundaries on all these other elements. So we can't interfere really that much when it comes to land, air, water, and even space. So now, if a person's not rational, this is why we have the concept of a selfish human being and a rational selfish human being. A rational selfish human being will try to help you when you're both going for a job interview, hope the best for you, but he's going to be the best he can to get the job. But he's not going to undermine you in any way to get the job. So now if you don't get to, or a person does not get from the rational being, not the human aspect, the being part, the part that people forget, because the human part is just the animal part. It's always in survive, and then some of them will twist it towards thriving. So until you get to that point, and even that, acting according to principles. That's why we have many words act in our language, because we live in the illusion called the play. So until a person gets to that awareness, then there's the practicing part. I can theorize about this because I don't always practice all that kind of stuff, because I realize I have to do a lot of acting, and in one lifespan, there's way too much stuff to do in one lifespan. So I figured I'd rather just gather information. That's my perspective now. So until a person gets to that.
Under moral philosophy, what
Yes.
is it? What does it mean to? What is it? What is particularism? Particularism.
Well, pull up the word,
What is
get the
particularism?
definition of morale philosophy. There's philosophy and then there's moral. They put them together. You can, so unless you look up all those.
Particularism.
Sorry, Louise, I just interceded there.
Moral philosophy. Because I heard the word particularism as something under moral philosophy. Oh, it's not working. My computer is slowing down.
Like you can philosophize about how numbers came to be, how electrical comes to be, but then you can philosophize with morals. Morals have to do with one's behavior.
A definition. Particularism is a philosophical position that, in brief, claims that reasoning can be rational and non-capricious without being structured using principles. Jonathan Dempsey has been the leading exponent of particularism.
Now look up the definition of rational then.
Let's invite Jonathan Dempsey to our meetings. Let's see if he's got a TED Talk or something. Oh, Jonathan Dempsey is a British philosopher.
Yes.
Born 1946.
He might not be around.
So he's getting up there. He's written on ethics and epistemology. He's currently professor of philosophy at University of Texas at Austin, and a research professor at the University of Reading. He taught for many years at the University of Kiel. His philosophical work, after having worked on problems on epistemology, and more particularly on the nature of perception, argumented from illusion, he emerged as the leading proponent in ethics of moral particularism, the idea that all moral reasons are particular and context sensitive rather than general. Oh, so that means my morality is different from yours because I create it. It's particular to me.
Yes.
There cannot be a moral philosophy that encompasses the whole world.
No. So you can philosophize about things like electricity, plumbing, or how buildings came to be and all that. And then there's more. Like even here, what does the rational means? If you break it down, even rational, having reason or understanding. Understanding means it's designed for you. That's why the word understand. That's for you to understand. Relating to, based on, or agreeable to reason. Agreeable. So that means you have to now start agreeing. So that's outside of the understanding. Rational, a reasonable, a rational explanation, rational behavior. So it's your own behavior now when you're talking about rational.
So this guy named Jonathan Dancy would say that we shouldn't try to follow moral principles because that's what causes our friction. We should consider that morality works. It's context sensitive. It context dependent. It happens for every moment. There's a good moral reason to do something, but then after that moment is gone, then you have to let it go and do another moral play at another moment. And so there's no principles, and we can do better without principles.
The thing is, principles, you could put the word
moral.
You could put the word commandment. See, when people have to have commandments or principle, it means they've gone array already. So they don't understand their own morality, their own guidance within themselves. This is why even the Buddha, like I got a really question, like they don't even talk about Buddha, whether or not he actually did illicit drugs. But at the same time, somebody along the way took whatever he did as an example and put it in words, and then they put it into principles. When if you have your own inner guidance, you don't need commandments or principle. You realize, don't harm other human beings. If anything else, if you want to be a better human being, treat other people better than yourself. See, this is where people take ideals, and this is what they've done with Kant, they've done this with Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha. They basically take some small person's example, and because we're human beings, we forget, look at nature. Look at how all the trees work. Look at how the earth works. Look at the roots, how it works, how the oceans work. They all have their own way of being guided. So, but for us, we think for some reason, well, if it works for my dad, it should work to me. No, best your parents could teach you is to be the example and hope that they have a gifted child that's always going to inquire. Because when you ask questions, you reinforce your parents to recall what they've forgotten or to reinforce what they've taught. Because if not, then people have to all come back all the time as an agitator. If we lived in a very kind world, we would still need agitators just to confirm those people truly value why they do what they do. Sorry, Louise. I personally think Kant, whoever talks about Kant, is kind of a moron, personally. But because pure reason, when that's just the mindset, you might as well say pure emotions. And most emotions, most people say they lead by the heart. I said that's the part that gets wicked all the time because there's blood that goes to it, and in the blood there's sodium. That's where memory's stored. This is why people, when they do operations, they have recollection of the person that was the donor, because we as a species has never elevated beyond what the few hand feed the masses. This is why we need principles, because, well, we're going to tell a whole bunch of people, don't kill your neighbors, opposed to, let's go back a couple of steps. Where have you failed yourself that you even think about killing another human being? Is it your emotions? Sure it is.
I'm gonna finish this Zoom. I got to my destination, and somebody's gonna get my attention real quick. But if I had to stay at this level of abstraction in describing reality, the whole with a big W, using these three aspects, I would say that reality is zero becoming one and 1 becoming 0 forever and ever, since ever and ever, and forever and ever. And because I'm talking about the whole, it doesn't matter where either, because this 0 becoming 1, 1 becoming 0 is like the hologram. In a hologram, you see the picture in every pixel. In a hologram, a 3D, it's a 3D representation. It's a good, reality is a hologram in 3D. And wherever you look, if you look close enough, tiny enough in the tiniest pixel, which I would call the quantum of energy, the Planck object, the tiniest space and the tiniest time before it all fizzles away into 0 Kelvin. So reality is 0 becoming 1, 1 becoming 0, at infinity and eternity. And I can propose that pure reason is close to the 1, a limit, a limit of approximation to 1, where reality is itself, sees itself, understands itself, and behaves like itself. Just imagine that. Beyond any trivial or mundane consideration, beyond any relativity. So where the relative becomes absolute. And the impure reason would be towards the 0, where you don't know shit, because you only have a couple of electrons floating around. They don't know shit. So impure reason would start, right from 0.000 something, and morph into pure reason as knowledge, which emerges from reality without reality knowing it itself, becomes closer and closer and closer and closer to the whole, the essential whole, which is the pure 1, where everything is actualized. It's pure being, what we call pure being. And that's the way I would describe reality. And that's where this consciousness feels that it's on a dynamic trip between between impure reason, getting closer to pure reason, knowing that everywhere in the middle is the 0. Because every change presupposes a crunch and a Big Bang. Every change is death and rebirth. Every change is the interplay between samsara and nibbana. Every change is 1 becoming 0 and 0 becoming 1. At a scale that is infinitesimal and infinite and eternal. That's my description of reality. And I'm going to have to leave you guys. I hope you recorded this, Heido, because this was big, at least in my perspective, in my understanding.
Are we hooking up later on at 4:15, guys?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm even going to try to join at 4 if I can.
Okay.
Enjoy yourself, Louise, by the way.
And I'll turn it on
You guys
around
too.
at 4.
Happy Friday.
Thanks, guys.
I'm gonna keep working, and
Okay.
we'll
Have a
enjoy
good-
another Zoom at 4.
Have a good work day, and may
You too, guys.
may your no reason help people reason things out.
All righty. Later.
Louise.
Bye-bye.
What do you think, Dominic? Does having no reason help understand pure reason and impure reason?
I guess pure reason could be, no reason. Could be somebody who I'm going to assume that is unaware, like I guess there's many, like if we're gonna play, like you guys were talking about, pure reason and no reason, could there not be different variations of reasons in between? You know, so a baby might have no reason. You know, I mean, if not, like let's say more times than not, they don't have reason. You know, but do they? You know what I mean? Because why would a baby cry then? It's trying to tell you it's hungry or it needs its diaper changed. So would that not show that the baby has reason? You know, like it's a tough one. I know I was a little arrogant by saying, go ahead.
Or could it be that no reason means that when one does something, one can't find a way to explain it, but it did make sense. It did have some moral need for that person to do whatever they did, like the baby crying. It didn't have a reason to do that, to seek food. It did that from the body, and the reactions were all body. So the baby didn't go through a line of reasoning like, oh, my body is asking for food. Therefore, I think I probably should cry. What do you think? And ponder over it for half an hour and philosophize over it and think, is there a moral thing I may be breaking, like a moral principle? And like, could it affect others if I cry? No, the baby didn't reason at all. It just did it.
You know something,
No reason.
Jay? It's like when people talk about the word truth. There's their personal truth, but it would be a big stretch to think that we would know universal truth. So a universal truth maybe could be, because there could be beings that don't do this, everybody needs to breathe. You know, that could be a universal truth. It could be. There could be beings that don't breathe. There could be all beings need to eat. That could be a universal truth. So there's pure reason where a person, you know, and again, it depends on where you're coming from. If a person's talking from pure reason, are they talking from the mind? Are they talking from the heart? Are they talking from the intuitive? Are they talking from all the receivers? So now, let's say I can explain something in a certain language that some people can understand, but for me, I understand it. But meanwhile, somebody that does American Sign Language explains it in American Sign Language, but I can't understand that. So does that show that I have pure reason, or I just don't have that type of reason? Because if I don't have that type of reason, that means how can I talk about pure reason? This goes back to people talking about, do I see outside the box or inside the box? So now a person will say, Dominic, I see outside the box. And I said, okay, so if I explain some of the details that are inside the box and you don't understand it, how can you say that you can see outside the box? See, I think a lot of times people make these grandiose leaps. They think that for some reason or another, that's usually patterns, where they say, well, that's just the way it is, Dom. So somebody could say that's pure reason for them. Their way, they shunned it off. That could be pure reason. That's their reason, and that's pure for them. Some people might call that's their my way reason, hidden reason, you know, narrow reason, perception reason. Do you see all the words I'm adding? This is where people get caught up, that they think the mind should only be open and closed. Actually, the mind that's open is very receptive, or to a lot of harmful things too. Where a person could say, but are you very perceptive with your mind? Are you very aware with your mind? Are you narrow with your mind? Are you shallow with your mind? Like, I mean, I've been hearing Louise, and hopefully in time he'll come to his own awareness. He's too much regurgitating the word reality, zeros and ones, where, hey, if that works for him, all the power to him. But at the same time, there's such an island out there and an ocean out there of different possibilities. But when a person is only looking for answers, then he's going to look at questions as zeros, answers as ones, and then encompassing them all as reality. This is where what is really reality? Is reality perceived from Dominic's view? Is it reality perceived from Jay's view? Is reality something that's inside of me and I have all these molecules working inside of me? Is reality something that I'm encompassed in? These are all possibilities. But when a person is leading only with their answers, like I heard him talking today to you a couple times, well, that's wrong. I said, well, then you're not really leading only from yourself. You're trying to justify your own position by telling other people, do we all agree upon, or we all agree upon what you call it, reality? No, I don't have that view on that. I don't lean towards the Big Bang, but I can see all its possibilities, but I don't lean towards it. Do I lean towards some creator or something called gods or aliens or whatever played a major role? That's a possibility, because I'm still trying to wonder how all these trees came to be. How did the desert come to be? Humanity doesn't have that ability. So knowing that, there has to be a possibility. And to think magically that for some reason it just happened to be, well, then I should be able to put my Honda in my garage and leave it for a couple of days and put a Mercedes sticker on it. And next day it evolves to a Mercedes. It doesn't work that way. See, this is where we create inanimate objects. We don't make live beings. We can make something that resembles a fly, but we can't create a fly. We can take a tree, take its seed, maybe take a branch off of it and replant another seed, another tree, but that doesn't mean that we understand the first tree, let alone the world that's going underneath, the root of those trees and how they interconnect. So to think that there's pure reason, that's like somebody saying, I'm a chess master and I have reason. I said, yeah, you learn how to store a lot of games, a lot of different moves in your head, which is a good craft, but that doesn't justify the whole. It's like a computer guy saying, listen, Dominic, I'm really good at video games. I'm really good. I really have good reason, this and that. Yeah, but you didn't create the game. You didn't create the plastic or the metal that actually makes the game. No. So this is where that's our ego leading. That's a spiritual ego. And then to say the word being is when we don't have to say the words anymore. I'm just who I am. Now, I know I need to identify myself with something, Domenico. But I'm not a holy guy. I'm not a pope. Those guys saying that tells me that they're playing a game with themselves. It's like a guy that says to me, Dominic, I want to rule. I said, then you really don't understand how it works here. Because a person that is truly wise would realize, I can never rule on this plane. Because then I would have to take in a lot of factors. So who's the criminal? The guy that stole, or the guy that actually prevented him from having enough food, so he had to steal from him? So who should be punished then? This is the game that we play. So I get it. You're posing a question for your reason. A guy like me probably wouldn't be conducive to a bunch of people that basically want to share back and forth about Kant. That's why I watch those videos, because I realize they're going to talk to justify a particular person that they think or imagine he's a cool guy. Kant, Jesus, Buddha. Oh my goodness, I think Buddha was a cool guy. Like, okay. But why do you need to have principles? And if it is, it probably worked for him. Try it for yourself, like really try it for yourself. And if you don't think it works for you, then you must be missing something. Missing that maybe you have your own program running inside of you and you have to have your own experience. Now, the fact that we have air, that means God's always here, or creator, or that's the manifesting of him or it, him living through nature. He's wild. He's untamed. He doesn't want to be domestified. We choose to be domestified. We choose to live in major cities, whether or not we turn around and say, yeah, but I had no choice. No, we always have a choice. We have many choices for some people. I could live out in the country, but I have to still respect the fact that if I live out in the country and I like the advantage of having a truck, I'm still indirectly living with the major population. I just can't pick and choose and say, well, yeah, Dominic, I don't want to be like those city goers because they have to do all those traps. I said, no, you still have your own traps, but you're just reducing them. So now you're living in nature. You're going to have to look at the weather. You're going to have to look if there's a wind coming, whether or not all these grasshoppers are going to come to your things. These are all the things that people, and I'm talking with awareness. So now how would a person say, well, pure reason? I've just explained to you a bunch of things. What kind of reason is he talking about? He's talking from a very narrow perspective. That's narrow reasoning. To put the word pure on top of it, it sounds good. It's like when somebody says the holy, we were talking earlier, Dalai Lama or the whatever. No, he's not holy. Now, go ahead.
But what does Kant mean by pure reason? Because Kant is German, so maybe in German the meaning is more obvious of the adjective pure with reason. Maybe it makes more sense if
Probably
we
does.
were German speakers, then they would say, wow, so there is a pure reason. Maybe the pure reason he's thinking about is the baby's needs. Like maybe pure reason is no reason, or in other words, not generating reason for what you do, but just doing it. Maybe that's what he means by pure reason.
Jay, the fact that you just said it's German, German is also a meaningful language, and I've shared with you before. If something was inspired to be written or spoken, a person that receives that information doesn't have to worry about who said the word, Kant, Jesus. It's the teachings. So he said pure reason, regardless of what language it was spoken in. If you go inwards, you will actually be inspired to grasp it. It will tell you whether or not it was very egotistical or it was very spiritual, and let alone if it serves a purpose for you. It's like the Bible could be shapeshifted and changed, but if you're truly sincere and trying to understand something with a genuine heart, a genuine mind, a genuine intuitive, it will come to you. But if people already set off, but I want him to be a good guy, then it says no sense of giving you any inspiration because you're going to slant it anyway. This is why when people get into certain, we'll call clubs, they come across as a sheep, but they're actually wolves. They really want to learn about certain teachings because they want to manipulate it. Now, the universe out there, usually what gives them that information is jinn, because they realize eventually I'm going to punish you because I know your heart. I know it's deceitful. People don't really want to learn what Kant has said, because if they did, they would stop. Hold on a second. They would stop talking about his name. We would just be saying, what do you think pure reason's about? Forget about whose mouth it came out of. Who cares whether or not Jesus, who Jesus was? What did he say on the mount? And even that we have to take with a grain of salt because other guys rewrote his work. So if a person wants to envision what a guy like Socrates says, don't worry about who he was. What was spoken? That's what it is.
So what would pure reason sound like in German? So I looked it up, and it's spelled reine ver. Well, the V is in Victor is, I think, is pronounced like an F. Reine Vernunft. I don't know, or maybe I'm wrong. No, yeah, Volkswagen is actually Volkswagen, like the people's folk as in people, folks, and Wagen. That's like the car, the people's car. So reine Vernunft. What did that sound like in German? To see if the sound, the resonance, causes one to see if it resonates with you.
Well, if you speak the language, it's like anything else. Like people that do certain types of magic, you have to have correct pronunciations of things, but your intent also has to be in line. So we don't know. Let's go back to whoever Kant is. We don't know his intent. We don't know what.
Vernunft.
We don't know
Reine Vernunft. Reine Vernunft. Reine Vernunft.
Reine Vernunft.
Reine Vernunft. Reine Vernunft.
Reine Vernunft.
Reine Vernunft.
Now that's a mantra for today. Reine Vernunft. Reine Vernunft. That way we'll conjure the mind of Kant and we'll be one with Kant and we will definitely know what he meant by pure reason.
No, probably
And
not.
then we will
Probably.
be able to attain his enlightenment, his Buddhahood.
He wasn't talking about enlightenment. He was talking about reason. That's a mind. That's a thing. Like, I guess, Jay, I'm hearing you. It's like people that meditate. If their intent isn't to really quiet the mind so then it can start learning to listen, they could do all the posture, they can do the ritual, they could do it for years. They're never going to be given that gift because they're resistant. So in this case, like I said, we don't know his upbringing. We don't know his intent. We don't know his teachers. So what people usually do is they look at the end. He's an amazing person. Why? Because enough people put it out there, and that's the people that are unaware. They're not using reasons. They're not literally stopping and saying, well, Dominic, before I really understand the teaching, shouldn't I understand how it came to be? Well, that would be using reason. And this is what I'm trying to say. The big gap between what people might call pure reason and unreason, most people would have to first learn what pure reason is. And once they realize, they have to understand what reason is first. And once they realize what reason is, they'll realize there's a big gap between unreason to reason, and then how to use reason, how to comprehend reason. And then from reason to pure reason, that's fucking years of work. And to think that for some reason, just because people talk about it, it's like somebody saying, I'm going to talk about the 10 Commandments. Doesn't mean you're going to become it. Everything else, people aren't even going to question. Why would I need to read the 10 Commandments more than once if I know it just makes no sense to keep? So let you go.
Okay. Okay.
I was going to say, if you have to go, Jay. But I guess, Jay, it comes down to we're using a topic, and this is one of those things where it could be expanded, but unless everybody else puts their own interpretation.
What is your interpretation of what reason is?
Reason is when you use your mind to comprehend things, to understand for yourself how you perceive the world. You know, whether it's the world internally, externally. I could use some of that reason to try to grasp when I hear other people talk and maybe ask enough questions to have a better clue of how they tick to a certain point, because I realize we're not always going to share everything with each other. So
what about the idea that yes, comprehending is good, but maybe that is pre-reason. Like before we can reason, we need to understand the object that we're considering, and then out of that we might say, okay, I have this situation and I want to get to that situation. Like I have this disease and I want to be free from that disease. So what steps do I need to take to get to be disease free? So you go through a line of reasoning. So maybe reasoning could include not just understanding something, but seeing a path to a destination, and then and then, oh, I have my reason or my intention or motivation for getting there now, or meaning. I have meaning with reason. What do you think about that?
I think my perspective is understanding is an internal thing. And once you understand or try to understand, your health will go into order. Your mind capacity, where reason resides, would come into order. Your emotions would come into order. So most people turn outwards because they've been conditioned to think understanding is an external thing. This is why when people say, I understand you, no. You can understand yourself. You might grasp the situation because something's telling you that person's not living a healthy life, but you don't really understand them. You don't know all their stories. So reason is underneath the envelope of understanding. This is where when people talk about it, now you could be the observer, and the observer will say, understanding and knowledge and wisdom is under me. So this is where people, once again, I do it myself too, where I deviate. If I was truly understanding my body, I wouldn't have to worry about viruses. I would know of it, and I would be doing everything to keep my body healthy. The fact that I say get a sickness or whatever, it tells me I let it slip. So now I'm going to have to backtrack and use my understanding how to recover my body back into a healthy mode. And then I have to learn about how to maintain it, because obviously that was a reason why it slipped. We, unfortunately, Jay, think the world that we call reality is an external thing. It is a beautiful thing out there, but that's something else somebody else created. And I'm even talking about the cars and the houses. You might have created your own house or built your own house, but then you have to explain who creates the bricks, who create the siding, who gave us that ability. You know, we're so interdependent with society, but inside you're independent. This is where people forget.
So you're saying that understanding is critical for reasoning, because before you set out to do any electrical work, you have to understand Ohm's law, which is current is equal to the voltage divided by the resistance. And if you don't understand that, you could get electrocuted. So before you can set out to work on something, you need to know understand
Not,
these things.
not
And that
necessarily.
understanding involves reasoning.
Not necessarily. I can teach somebody to do electrical work and they have no grasp whatsoever of Ohm's law. To understand electricity and how it works, you might have to do that. But to install electricity, like electrical stuff, no, you don't have to understand that. You don't need reason.
But you could explain it indirectly or with metaphors that the current is, think of it as a river or water going through pipes, and if you have a smaller diameter pipe, it causes more resistance, and then maybe this happens and all of that. So
Can I explain something to you, Jay?
explain it that way.
Yeah. I will explain to you the body, how most people have learned their things. Treat the body like a car. You'll learn how to drive a car. You'll learn external stops and goes and all that kind of stuff. But do most people only learn to drive the car? More times than not. How many people learn to maintain the car? Very few out of the most. How many people actually understand how to make a car? Hardly, very few of us. That's why we have mechanics. So what happens is the body's no different. We will learn how to drive the body, but we don't understand how to maintain it more times than not, generally, or basically how it came to be or who made it. That's where we're unreasonable. You don't use reason for that. We don't have understanding. We don't have comprehension, which is the same idea. Understanding, comprehension is the same idea. So to think that for some reason or another, a person can say, well, Dominic, but I understand a car. I said, what aspect do you understand of the car? When it gets a flat tire, when it runs out of gas, when it drives you from point A to B, and then back to C, then to E. Which one do you understand? This is where people are very like this. This is when people read philosophy, they do this. They're always doing this. They're not looking this way and saying, okay, but should I be looking at this way, and then looking at all this information? It's neat. And then, you know, and that's like anything. Philosophy is behind every dogma. You know, you got to philosophize. Why? Because we didn't create any of this stuff. So we can philosophize. How did steel come to be? Oh, wait a second. How did the language come to be? That's philosophizing. But if I'm going to turn around and say, well, you know something, I'm a linguistic. So I think it came from the Arabics. I said, okay, so you just pushed it back a little bit. Instead of forward, you pushed it back a little bit. Okay, where did the Arabics get it from? Well, I got it from Babylon. Okay, but where did language come to be? It's like me saying, trees have always been here. The sun's always been, actually the sun's been here. And even that, I can only philosophize that the sun's always been here. I can only philosophize the moon's always been here. Because even the Bible story, do they talk about all the spheres all the time? Probably not. The sun they do, but not the moon. You know, this is where, again, reason. This is where people get into, well, I'm a globalist. Well, they're using an unopen or unreceptive reason to look at the possibility of somebody introduce the concept that maybe we live on a flat plane or a triangle plane or a four-corner plane. Dom, I would have a tough time with that. So then you don't really have pure reason then. It's like a guy saying that he has an open mind, but meanwhile I start sharing things and he's quickly defending his position. I'm like, then you're saying the word, but you're not that. It sounds nice. Let's put the word pure in front of it, because we really don't know what reason is. And even that, it's each individual's opinions. So then let's put the word pure, because why? The religious people use the word holy. It's a,
So, do you think that pure reason has to do more with being able to reason it out without having to refer to common sense, or without having to refer to what we know from experience, but to be able to reason purely like mathematically, like with objects that are not real, like with lines and triangles and circles?
well, if you're talking pure reason, you would have to use all those modalities. It's like me and you are doing research for some company on, say, salt. We would have to go out there and investigate and gather all kinds of information before we even start assessing it. Unless we're going to say, listen, we just want to prove that salt is good. So we're going to only look for only certain information, and that favors it. So we're being very biased at that point. But if we're being non-biased, we would have to gather all that information for, and then bring it in, and might even have to experiment with it our own self so we can have our own personal experience. And then and only then, we could truly say we can start doing investigation and maybe have an outcome out of it. So to have pure reason, like the way you're describing it, yeah, you would have to use math, you would have to use color, you would have to use experience. Doesn't mean you have to be good at any particular one. This is where people forget pure reason, or some people think I have to learn, because most people have been taught you go to university for one degree, opposed to, but you've been doing many other degrees during all that time. You've been using language all your life. You've been using numbers for most of your life. You've been using colors. You know, some people study using Baroque music because they understand that helps studying. So all that plays a role in reason. To think it's pure, if it is, for whoever says it is, him saying it out loud tells me probably it isn't pure, because the person that is doing it probably doesn't have to explain himself. It's like a person
What
that's,
if, so what if when he says pure, he means that it's not based on the mundane world, that it comes from somewhere, uh, somewhere out there in the soul world, the spiritual world, something that we don't even know about. It's maybe subconscious. Maybe it comes from the subconscious.
well,
Or maybe it comes like maybe when you're born and you have no experience, maybe you're working out of pure reason because you have not experienced life, and everything you do is out of pureness, like is motivated by pure something in the body.
so you just said something
Maybe
there.
that's what pure. Maybe that's what pure reason is.
Okay, this is where,
It's reason that comes from the body, independent of what conventional society thinks.
well, you just share something, and that's why most people get confused, because they think it's reason is something to do with the mind. When the baby is born, that's an experience. When the baby moves his leg for the first time, whether it's aware of it or not, that's experience. When a baby cries for the first time, that's an experience. When a baby finally opens his eyes, that's an experience. That's all being recorded. That's an experience. So now when you share that out loud with thoughts and all that, you're experiencing previous experience. So now reason comes from, well, to say the mind or whatever. Yes, we can't see the mind. Sure, you're going to say that. See, if this was esoteric stuff, then it would be probably more secret. Not secret in a sense, it would be secret, it would be in plain sight, because most people aren't interested in this kind of stuff, because most people have been so well conditioned or unconditioned or untrained that they don't know enough to look for this kind of stuff, whether out of pure curiosity or make it a life's purpose. You know, this is where, you know, like I said, you just said something, Jay, and whether you're aware of it, we denounce the fact that if a child puts his hand on a stove, it's experiencing something. Now, if we turn around and say, well, that child's going to do something bad, well, who told us it's bad? Because if we thought it was bad, then should it be our role to have actually taught the child a lot of things that we could have explained to the child before he even puts his hand on the stove? Yeah, but Dom, that would have been difficult. I said, well, then that's why the child's putting on that, because that person thinks he has limitations of how to explain to a child that certain elements you shouldn't put with other elements, which would be your hand. So this is what I'm trying to say. Everything I'm sharing with you is reasoning. And most people don't even get to this awareness. So for them to think pure reason, I'm like, what game are they playing? Because in this particular case, you're trying to fit something or you're trying to make sense of something where does it value you or serves purpose for your energy and effort to be spent on whether or not it was Kant, Hegel, or whoever, where, you know, they could be the person that says, okay, I'm going to show you some breadcrumbs for you to follow. But after a while, I'm not going to be walking with you anymore. This is your responsibility, because we don't know whether or not Kant wrote anything. This could have been somebody else, like Socrates. I mean, it's Plato. Who knows? He could have plagiarized Socrates in so many different ways. Because last time I recall, Socrates actually got killed or had to take some sort of poison because he was trying to teach kids something. So why would Plato repeat the same thing then if he knew the punishment for that? So he must have did something. He must have wrote something else about him and just used his name. This is why I don't put value personally, Jay, on any name. Those are just identifications. I look at a tree. I don't put value on the word tree, and that's why I'm aware the word tree does not exist on the object. So now I can actually look at the tree. I'm thinking, we give ourselves names, so why don't we give each individual thing that we call a tree a name? You know, imagine everybody calling you this, your last parent's name. That's it. The whole family, they call you one name. Well, how would you know which one you're talking about? It's like trees. We give them one general name and then we break them down to almond tree, but don't each one, shouldn't they have their own identification? Because we don't realize the value that comes from sound that comes from it. When I talk to my kitty cats, as I'm using the word cat, and I say Buffy or Gypsy, they're hearing the frequency and sound in all of that. Now, if a person says he has pure reason, I shouldn't have to explain that to them. They should already be aware of that. And if you're not aware,
but you may be assuming something about pure reason that is not what Kant was talking about. But maybe it has to do with spontaneous action that you can't, after doing it and you look back, why did you do that? And you say, oh, I had no reason. Maybe that's pure reason. Like when a baby, although a baby does accumulate experiences, then does the baby put them together into something and then say, okay, I'm going to do this because of previous knowledge. I'm looking back and recalling something. And then maybe that would be reason. Okay, because I burnt my hand on the stove. I have that experience. So now I
have reason. I have reason.
In that moment, to not touch the stove. So that kind of reason is not pure. But
yes, it is. In that moment, it is. If he chooses never to put his hand on the stove ever again, besides just reason, that's pure reason. He knows for himself never to do that again.
That's not what I understand. Pure reason. It sounds like pure reason is a reason that doesn't require prior knowledge, and the other kinds of reasons that are not pure are kind of synthetic. It required bringing together previous knowledge, and like I touched
Jay, time out. Jay, let's read what he says here. In Immanuel Kant's moral philosophy, burning your own hand, morals about yourself first and foremost. It is defined as a capacity of rational beings, a person that's rational. Say the child isn't rational, to act according to principles. So now he's put on his hand on the stove. He had to go on the ladder. So now he needs principles. He has to act accordingly to principles. So in that particular moment, he's learning about reason. And if he doesn't do it again, he doesn't need the principles anymore of saying, don't put my hand on the stove. I just don't do it anymore. That is pure reason. Because
No, that's just reason. You look for the definition of reason, but it wasn't pure reason, is it?
okay, so hold on a second.
Oh,
I
wait a minute,
gave
there
you,
it is. Defined as the capacity of rational being to act according to principles.
yes, the concept of laws. And what do you think a stove is? It's elements. What is your hand? An element. So in that particular, okay, I put the word pure. Okay, so it's not a matter of me saying it's right or you saying, Dominic, it isn't, because we're only pondering the possibility of what we think the word pure reason is. But he's using reason there. And if a person chooses, I'll give you an example. A person says to me, Dominic, I put my hands on a stove and I burnt my hand. He said, Dominic, I learned my lesson. Okay, no problem. So weeks go by. He says to me, Dominic, I got frostbite. What happened? I didn't wear my gloves. Oh, okay. And then weeks later after that, he said, Dom, I was sitting out in the sun and for some reason I forgot to put tanning lotion on my hand. I burnt my hand. He never learned from the first time. He never learned that the hand needs to be protected from elements. He just thinks elements are only from a stove. But wait a second, elements come in many variations. Frost, sunlight. So he hasn't learned reason yet. Now, once he becomes aware of it, and as I'm talking to him, I don't need to act accordingly. There's certain things after a while, you don't need principles anymore. You understand morality, philosophy. You can philosophize by saying, okay, that person burnt his hand. I can philosophize about it because I don't have to do it
Oh.
anymore, him. I don't have to act all the time. This is what I was telling you a while back. Life is too short to spend so much time trying to do everything. You can be everything, but you can't do everything. I could think about having a cottage, a boat, a mansion. I could think about all those things, but most people get caught up in the material, but I have to have them. I said, the experience comes from the being part. The lineal experience is the physical part. You can only do one of those things at a time. You can't be in your mansion and your boat at the same time unless you put it inside there. But then you're going to say, okay, well, then if that's the case, then I must have put pictures around me. I said, yeah, exactly. We're beings that we use 5 dimensions, 5 senses, sorry, not dimensions, 5 senses. Those senses are within us, but we're picking out outside external expressions to being inside of us. That's our reality inside. So when people say reality, well, then let's really look at what it means then. If a person says reality is outside, I said, okay, let's break it down. Do you see the tree? And they'll say, yes. I said, then you don't understand reality then, because you don't realize the word reality is always within you. Where is thoughts? If you don't know where thoughts is, then you're not going to know where reason is. Pure, I could change the word to pure to aware reason. And that would encompass that. Being
No,
aware of reason.
but the definition you put in the chat,
Yes.
you added the word pure, and
Yes.
and so then that doesn't define pure reason. That defines practical reason.
You
But
can.
you
There's
that
another
actual-
word, Jay. There's another word you see how many words you can put with the word reason? Many. You can use many
No,
reasons.
but when you put an adjective to a word, that it changes the definition. So the definition of practical reason is the rational capacity by which rational agents guide their conduct.
Mhm.
In Immanuel Kant's moral philosophy, it is defined as the capacity of a rational being to act according to principles. So that means that what you defined was practical reason, not pure reason. So there's a difference.
Jay, I've said this a while back. We're using a language, which is English, which is a combination of 4 other languages, and Germanic is one of them. French, Latin, and Spanish are all they're all meaningful languages. So we have to define everything with meaning. This language is by far an inferior language compared to, say, Greek, that's a comprehension language, or Sanskrit if you're doing healing modalities. So knowing that, this is where everything gets skewed, because in a meaningful languages, knowing that it comes from 4 other languages, we have to actually pick and choose, do our research, recall back how was it intended back in those days. And we can use the word cool to mean many different things. We can use the word there to mean many things. This is how it gets skewed. So I just put down a particular definition. But for me, awareness, the observer, looks beyond the meaningful language, and I go inwards. This is where when a person says it resonates with them, it's not based on the language that they're hearing. Something tells it resonates. It's like a person sees something and he knows to react because another person is being harmed. He's not spending time to trying to figure out, did he start it or she started it? Something resonates them and says, listen, I've already got it already in order. Just do my part and follow me. This is where we forgot. This is where the inner guidance comes within. So now you just use another word. I use the word aware. You use the word practical. This is how we dance around somebody saying, well, but the king is the name pure. No, he chose to play that game calling himself pure. I could use many words. I could call him around and call he's an egotistical king. Another person can say he's an idiot king. Another person can say he's a chump king. Another person can say he's a coley king. But we all acknowledge the fact that he's a king, but other people could turn and say, but I don't acknowledge him that. Well, then how would you identify him then? It's bingo. He chooses to identify himself with the name king. Even though he had a mother's given name and a father's surname, he chooses to go with the name king. That means he's egotistical. That's all it means. When he's called himself holy, he's egotistical. And he would have to be conditioned from birth. This is where the Dalai Lama, they could talk about he was rebirth and all that stuff. And a lot of the elites do understand the rebirth process. But the thing is, he had to be conditioned into another child. Even in the Bible, it talks about, when the Pharaoh and Moses, where the Lord said, yeah, I raised him from birth. What do you think he was doing? He was conditioning him from birth to see which one would actually ever become the Pharaoh. He wasn't just doing 1 or 2. So, Jay, I'm going to let you go soon because I got to take off. I'll be here. I'll be back at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Have a beautiful day, okay, my
Nice
friend?
talking to you.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Luis. See you later this afternoon.
Yeah. Fifth day fasting for me so far. Ciao, buddy.
Good job.
¿Pago la televisión?
No. So I'm going to eat.
A las 6, no sé.
Tengo el cheque de Araceli.
¿Tenés los papeles?
Sí. Oh. ¿Los dejé en el carro o los entré? Voy a ver. Let's see. No. Entonces, ¿estarán en el carro? ¿Será que los puse? ¿Será que los puse atrás en el? Voy a buscarlos. Uy. La llave. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna